So the first question is, could you introduce yourself, where you're from, who you are, where you're from, and how long you've been in real estate?
I'm Jim Wolf. I've been licensed since 1964. And that was a salesman. And just by the way, one of my the first marketing session I ever went to was only 4 or 5 guys together in a restaurant in Fort Lauderdale. And Richard Reno was one of them. I didn't know anything about it. I'd just been broke from being in the movie business. I was about 31 at that time, and opened my first movie studio a few years before, went broke with it, and when everything else is gone, you become a real estate salesman in Florida. That's the only thing left. Anyway, I got myself out of that hole, and it's because of creative real estate, marketing sessions, and connections and people, and doing things differently. I've been what I consider successful. And next question.
All right. In your words, what's the difference between conventional forms of brokerage and what you guys do here?
Everything. The people in creative real estate, or the people in conventional brokerage, are always trying to represent a client, as they should, and that's what they are bound to do, to take care of their clients. In creative real estate, there's a whole different thing. And fortunately, for most of the people in this, they end up making their own portfolios bigger. When I started out in real estate, I found out I was such a poor salesman that I'd find these houses for sale that I thought were just a great deal, but I couldn't find anybody to buy them. So if I can get something for nothing down, like I was advertising nothing down, and take over payments and add a second mortgage or whatever, I could do that. So why didn't I? And I did. And over my lifetime, I had about 200 rental houses, just using the same techniques that every salesman has available. But I ended up buying them myself sometimes, often, because I couldn't. I had a hard time selling, and then I branched out into all kinds of other things, as far as utilizing those houses for purchase of other things. And now I've got property in a lot of states, and some of it's very valuable, or to me valuable, and I love it. I'm still doing deals every day if I can, and I've been able to venture out into other businesses like building houses and other things.
So, do you represent clients?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. When you did, how was exchanging? How did the approach that they have, which a lot of them call counseling, how did that change your relationship with your clients?
Well, yeah. The idea of counseling is so it's just everything. To find out why somebody really wants to do something, whether they want to sell a property, they might not even know they wanted to sell it. They might want to use it as a toy for something else, or a card to go bigger or whatever. And often the salesmen themselves don't know what's going on until they've started asking a lot of questions. Counseling is interesting. What it really is just thorough questioning.
Getting into a word that comes up a lot is motivations.
Yeah.
And benefits.
Sure.
So could you explain what those mean to a layman?
Well, benefits to in most people's mind is you can sell a property, get cash for it, and they don't know what to do with the cash. The best question anybody can ask, well, okay, if we can sell your house, what are we going to do with the money? And if they don't know what they're doing with the money, they really are at sea as far as I'm concerned. They just saw dollar signs. And for sure, there's a lot of times that you want to sell for cash, and that's the right thing to do. But there are so many other times that the cash is just almost a detriment. It's just something that you have to put in the bank and pay taxes for. But if you can find the benefits of a property or a client, if it will, through counseling, you'll invariably find more value in that property than just the dollars.
Cool. I'm going to ask you a question that I don't ask on other people. This is because you said his name is Richard Reno?
Yeah,
Rick?
Richard Reno.
Yeah, so what changed with him? What did he do for the real estate industry?
Well, like I said, had just been broke. I was just starting out in real estate when I happened to go to that first marketing session. It was just a few weeks after I got my first license. And I didn't know what these guys were doing. It seems to me they were just playing Monopoly with real estate. And it was way over my head and way beyond anything I had any concept of. But Reno was the father of, I think, creative real estate at least as far as SEC is concerned. I'm not sure about NCE, but the idea that the property is not the problem, it's the people with it, is the beginning of what he started. But he was proselytizing all over the country, and it was instrumental in creating the, oh my gosh, International Trade Club. International Trade Club. I'm not sure, but that morphed into the, and that was part of NAR. And NAR, of course, has boards all over the country. And so part of every board became the exchangers. In about 1960 something, there was a schism between the head of at that time the exchangers and NAR, and they decided to not be partners. Otherwise, it'd be like the exchangers would be like part of CCI, like CCIM or something else now. But they're sort of estranged.
Is that schism maybe why it's so rare to run into an exchanger?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. If it had still been a part of NAR, I'm sure that it would be much more profit, popular. And if I may go a little farther with
Please.
that, in the heyday of exchanging, I think was in mid-70s. I was a partner with A.D. Kessler at that time, and partner in real estate. He was a promoter of something he called the expos. The expos were big marketing sessions, mostly here in Las Vegas, but we also had one in Orlando and a couple of other places, several other places. Anyway, the expo was, I remember the number of 2,500 people over in Caesar's Palace in the same room, several times a year. And deals were made, week-long marketing sessions, deals were made by the hundreds, and some of the speakers were just phenomenal, wonderful, knowledgeable, creative people. I remember I had a round table once. I was talking to beginners about how to get started in exchanging, and I was right next to another round table where Barney Zick was going on, and it's like next to Billy Sunday or some marvelous preacher talking, and I couldn't keep up. I couldn't keep my audience. I couldn't do anything. But we had those kinds of speakers, and did tremendous amounts of business. And I'm lucky enough that AD and I partnered up in a large, relatively large holding in Texas, that his family still has several thousand acres.
Can you explain why you call it creative real estate? Like, what to someone who doesn't understand, they think of real estate as someone, okay, you're buying a house. So why do you guys have more options? Why do you have more flexibility? Why, what?
In my local marketing session, marketing meeting, which is terrible now. I still have a weekly meeting in Fort Lauderdale. But part of our handout, if you will, is 50 different terms or so, 30 or 40, that it is not in any state manuals at all. Like what is a sandwich lease, or buying the paper or parts of the paper, or why would you create paper against a property that you own, and there's hundreds of things to do with it besides just try to sell it.
Like what they call often formulas.
Pardon?
What they call formulas.
Well, personally, I don't like the word formula because it sounds like something you got to learn and then you do it. I think you can be creative on your own and take a property and the problem that somebody might have and come up with a solution, not necessarily a formula that somebody else already created.
Right, so maybe a strategy template,
yeah,
or something.
Yes,
okay, but yeah, they need one word, so formula is what they chose, I guess.
It's okay.
Counseling might not be the perfect word either.
I don't think it is.
I've had a lot of people say I don't like the word counseling because they think of, a shrink.
Yeah, I agree.
But so do you feel that exchangers have helped people more, or do you feel like you've made a difference in people's lives through your career?
Oh my God! I had one fellow, for instance. This is just a for instance. A close friend of mine. I traded some property for him, that I had. He reluctantly took. I think he gave me a house trailer or something for it. I forget. But anyway, it was probably value altogether. This was years ago, but let's call it X, or let's call it $10,000. He didn't have that much money in it, but let's call it, that was the value of the deal. Anyway, Ollie had a stroke a few years ago, and he's it's just in terrible shape, and he's old, and even older than me. Anyway, he one time called me, says, or he had his interpreter, his wife, tell me he can't talk anymore, and said that there's somebody who wants to buy his property, and he says he sold it, and it turns out that he might have sold it, but somebody failed years and years ago, failed to record a deed, and he has no recollection of who it might have been or anything else. As a matter of fact, he sold I sold him 40 acres of land in Texas, or traded him 40 acres of land in Texas. He made 4 tens out of that and traded off to 4 different exchangers. And anyway, this one guy called and wanted to buy his property because it's obviously in still the name of Ollie Jackson. And Ollie didn't know what to do. He said, I said, Ollie, sign the paper, sign the paper, sign it. And finally Ollie did, and his wife got a check for $100,000. And that was when they really could use it. You know, it just made me feel good that way. And if I had to make a list of people that have benefited from some of the things that I've been able to do, it would be a pretty good list of those who are happy with it. And some of them probably pissed off at me, but I don't know that. They've not mentioned it. I'm just saying probably.
But in general, you feel like you do more good than harm at the end of the day.
Yeah, sure.
And that's awesome. That's a great aspect of it.
And my kids feel that way too.
If you're, to the layperson, the whatever stereotype they have in their head of a real estate broker, if they came into this room, don't you think they'd be surprised?
Yeah, and probably turned off about it. If you go through if you go through all the steps that I'm not going to say the names of any big brokerage, they would be horrified to see that their salesman is here negotiating a deal. Because the first thing they got to do is make sure that broker is paid, and it's not possible to negotiate much if you have to make sure your broker is happy all the time. Especially if they have national rules that were set up, it's almost like a government in Washington or someplace.
What? Speaking of getting paid, have you ever taken anything other than cash as a commission?
Oh my gosh, yes. Cars, boats, like just in land. A lot of times they take dirt. Just all kinds of things.
This is more for Blake, but because he loves the history of all this stuff, Blake Allen. And what was Richard Reno like? Oh,
like I said, I only met him.
Oh, okay.
When I was just starting out, and everything else is history. But I was never in contact with him before he died.
Oh, okay. My bad.
But he made the Real Estate News Observer, which was the first magazine that I know of for the exchangers. And A.D. Kessler bought the magazine and changed it into Creative Real Estate Magazine, and which would add a subtitle on the front of it, the Real Estate News Observer, which is Reno. And what else do you want to know about that?
Oh no, that's fine. I just thought if you knew him that because he's like important in this in the history of all this stuff.
He really is, but he's important because he was so connected with NAR and made all these chapters of exchangers as a subsidiary of the brokerage. The boards of realtors in every town, and that was magnificent, and it caused the California real estate exchangers, the Arizona real estate exchangers, all the Florida real estate exchangers. I think I got my pen on here. The Florida real estate exchangers was very successful years ago. Now it's pathetic as far as attendance and deals. Although there's a few guys.
Well, isn't it because there's a lot of cash?
Yeah.
In a way, when times get tough.
Yeah, and people say, why would I do that? I'd rather pay the tax and take the cash, pay the tax, or whatever. But as far as I'm concerned, maybe it's not a dying thing, but it's sure as hell sick from what it could have been or was during the 70s, 80s.
One thing that surprises me is that even though you guys are technically a room of competitors, it doesn't seem like that when you walk in there. It seems like people are giving knowledge out for free, giving ideas out, and helping each other get deals done, even if they're not attached.
I never thought of a exchanger being a competitor. Always probably a partner in some way, at least exchanging information, if nothing else. And you know, a lot of them could be charging a lot of money for their knowledge and never do.
It's quite amazing. Okay, so I have one more question for you.
Sure.
Do you like your job?
What job? I don't have a job. I'm 84 years old. The last job I had was working for the Navy back when I was 20.
So you're 84, so this is probably your last session, your last meeting.
Oh, no. No. I do live in Florida, though, and the jet lag is much more difficult to handle than it was when I was your age. I'm sure of that.
My point being is that you're probably not ever going to stop this.
Oh, no. I've got 4 or 5 deals right now that I've got. Here, I can advertise on television. How's that? I'm building houses out of shipping containers. This is the strongest house that's ever been built. And I'll be able to prove it by a certified engineer from a university within a few weeks. And it'll be termite, fire resistant, tornado proof, hurricane proof. I'm trying to think of what else could go wrong. Tree falling on it.
Earthquake, I guess an earthquake could probably ruin it.
Well, okay, it's earthquake and sinkhole resistant. In an earthquake, the earth shakes, and it might move this house around, but it'll move it around as one piece. If there's a sinkhole, and we have sinkholes in Florida that are kind of weird, but they never know where they're going to happen. But there is as I understand it, a poor devil near Tampa was asleep in his bed one day, and the whole end of his house fell in the hole. And they took a long time to find it. I mean, it was just awful. But in my case, if the house has a sinkhole under it, it might do this, but it ain't gonna break that way. It's all steel.
And when are those going to be done? Are they built?
This is the first one. It's still under construction, and it will be. I've made my own goal to have a catalog available in mid-January for about 4 different versions of this, like any builder would. And what I'll be able to do is, depending on shipping, but I have 2 fabricators, one in Florida, one in Georgia, right now, ready to build them. And what I'm going to do is ship to anybody who wants a house. If they've got a lot, we can arrange the financing, and I will ship them the shell of the house. It'll have cutouts and preparation for windows and doors and everything, and have a ceiling and a floor. And they'll have to pour concrete, and then they'll have to put in their own doors and windows, but they will fit perfectly. It's just no big deal. So that house can be dried in a day.
Wow.
A day.
I have a question now. I don't, because Blake's mentioned this story to me. Do you know the tuna can story?
No.
Okay, never mind. I think it might be.
Wait a minute. You mean that tuna is for trading, not eating? Oh yeah, that's nasty.
There you go. I'm just getting anyone.
I guess I have heard it. Then,
okay. If you never went to that meeting, I mean, how different would your life be?
I have no idea. I mean, I'd probably not be in real estate. If I had to depend on my sales ability, no, I could not. But now I've been able to morph it into all kinds of things, like playing games with houses and stuff like that.
Well,
I'm renting 100 shipping containers to Walmart and stuff like that in Georgia right now.
Wow.
Several different businesses that have all come out of creative real estate.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure. Unless you won't have anything to add,
No.
I appreciate it. It took a little longer than normal, but that's fine.